on to that now.
And
So,
went handed in
are we ready?
bit by bit. We got up to
65. We got up to 65 basic a week.
Okay, can you hear it, lads?
Then you will
Okay.
go.
So, will we start with you? Could you just tell us your name? Tell us about your family as well, where they came from, were they always Dungarvan people and all that kind of stuff, and just give us a picture of your family, all that kind of stuff. So you go first, and we'll get Mike next.
Well, my name is Eddie Cantwell, and we're originally from Ballylem and Carricklee, and we ended up in Ballyrandall, out in Ballin Road.
And your family was what was your mother's name?
My mother's name was Glavin.
Glavin.
Glavin, yeah.
And were they? So did you come in? Did they come into Dungarvan for work, or how did they end up here? What was the story?
Well, mostly people back then, they worked in farms and stuff like that, until such time as 1935, when the leather factory opened. There was hardly no employment in the town back then. So when the factory opened the 9th of October, I think, Michael, was the official opening.
Yeah.
There was over 200 people employed there then,
Okay.
so it was a great asset to the town.
Okay. And Michael, your family, where did they come from?
My mother came from Famine, and my father came from Medeligo. And my mother's people, they were involved in, they went off at the age of about 20, they went off and joined the army 1914-18. And they moved into, my father got a job as the porter in what was then known as the county home, or the jug. And that's where we grew up then, in the county home, which was a place of stories after stories because of the people that used to come in there. That would be roadmen and all that, knights of the road, and you could stay then, or you could come the night before the fair and come to the fair in Dungarvan. People used to play music, collect their few bob and go on to the next fair, and they would do the whole trip of Munster. But most of them would end up in what was then known the county home, and they'd end their days there, and that would be it. They wouldn't have anybody belong to them living, so they were well cared for.
I can just go back a little bit. You said your family were they involved in the British Army?
Well, no. They joined up like lots and lots of other people, because there was very little to do. So they joined up like lots of people for the adventure, and thinking that the war would be over in Christmas. But when Christmas came, it went in from 1914, 1918, and millions killed, as you know.
And did you have relatives killed?
I had two uncles, my mother's brothers, and actually Thomas, Michael went to war. He's still living in FN, he's about 90. And he has the sword that his father had, and a spear and a helmet that he brought home. Now, if you knew that man, Michael Fitzpatrick, I didn't know the other man, but if you knew him, he was the most unlikely man to go out shooting Germans. But he went anyhow. A lovely little gentleman, and I often said he was in the Irish Horse, and I often said to Thomas, he'd never talk about, did he shoot anyone? I don't know, did he or not? So that's where we came from, and then I was it's St. Joseph's now. I was there until I was 18, and I met all the characters that came in as I grew up, do you know?
And
That's the Gate Lodge at the
Gate
the
Lodge.
county home. And tell me about the county home. You said a lot of people would it be mostly kind of people on the road, like traveller people, is it? Or?
Yeah, well, that were in there as what was known as inmates, and they were known as something else also. But they'd come and they were there for life, and they died and they were buried down the corner of the graveyard there.
So they'd be like destitute people.
Exactly, yes.
But do you remember you said that people would come along for the fair
That's right.
and they would stay there for a couple of nights and then they'd move on?
And they'd move on to the next fair.
Was that allowed?
They were
like,
called Knights of the Road.
Yes.
Actually.
Knights of the Road?
Knights
Yes.
of the Road, yeah.
So they were like the travelling musicians and people that
Exactly.
hustlers and all that kind of stuff?
And drovers.
Okay,
Like you were
drovers.
at the fair, and they knew you met one of the buyers, and he'd ask you, would you drive that bunch as far as Ballylimon? And you drive them then to Ballylimon, which would be 7 or 8 miles out, and you'd know that you had been there before, where to put him. He'd tell you what shed or what field to put him in, and that would be, and you'd be paid for it. And then you may not come back to the fair, because you'd walked 7 or 8 miles. You would there was fairs all over. There was actually a fair of Fan, although I don't think there's now a.
Yeah, the
It was
famous
a
fair, yeah.
big spot up there, and a large congregation of Protestants there too. There's a fine church down at the place that's dilapidated now, but that's
Famous
where we
for
go.
great
Yeah.
rakes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, this is the famous healer.
Healer, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And come here, Michael, would you have any memories then of the fairs in the old days that you come into Dungarvan?
Oh, I would. In the fair now would be held in the square, and you'd have bunches of weanlings. You'd have carts with a calf or two in it, and they'd be in coarse bags with their heads out, and you'd buy a couple of calves. My uncle used to do it actually, take them home, feed them, and when they were weanlings then, they would be left out in the field and they could sell them as weanlings. They only had an acre, but you'd come along and they'd be well done with them. They'd have the milk, and I remember well Indian corn, and they'd boil it in a big pot on the crane, as they say, in over the open fire, and could be cooked, and that's what they'd feed them. And I remember well when the calf would be sticking his head into it, they'd be shaking the bucket because the yellow meal would sink, and they wanted them to have the yellow meal as well as the milk, so they'd be shaking it up to feed them. Yeah.
And come here, do you know when you're in at the fair, would you remember, like, was it with the horses? Would they be there as well at the same time? or was that a different day?
You had a horse fair
Different,
as
yeah.
well as that. And then the fire brigade would come out, or the council would come out, and they would clean all down the shore,
If you can
square.
imagine, the whole square would have been covered. There'd
Yeah.
be several hundred cattle there. And you'd have young fellas minding them, wouldn't you, with
That's
sticks,
right.
and sometimes
Yeah.
they'd bowl. But all the shop fronts and all were covered. You know, it was...
But you know the way, like the horse fair, would there be a lot of travellers at it?
Well, they would. Everybody.
But would there be trouble at those, or would there be
There'd
just...
be a couple of belts thrown. Even they needn't be travellers. You
No,
know.
and there's one great story of the donkey being tied outside Kineen's pub, and the owner of the donkey was gone in for his few pints, and a certain travelling gentleman took a donkey rather, and sold them. Remember that stuff? No. Yeah.
Even though it wasn't his own.
Oh, it wasn't his own, no, it was sold.
And they had to get a ticket in to go into the county home, and that ticket would be given up there on Church Street by a man, Mickey D. he was. So they knew it. You had to get a ticket to go in, and you had to get a pass to go out. If you were resident there now, they'd all line up, and we'll say after dinner, and Sister Lua, she was the matron, she'd give the pass to come out, and they wouldn't left out if they hadn't that. My father would have to check that, because some she wouldn't leave out for her own reasons. As a matter of fact, she'd ask him, where were you going? You know, if a man was in danger of jumping into the quay when he'd get out.
Someone that'd be off their head, like.
Yeah. Anyhow, there was one man, a little story about it. Tom Welsh was his name. And he went up to the matron and he said, and where are you going, Tom? Oh, he said, I go to the circus, I believe Duffy's are in town today. Now, he could be having a handout of her. And he said, oh, circus, she said, I didn't know you were interested in the circus. Oh, he said, I travelled with Duffy Circus for years, myself and the wife. I didn't know if he ever had a wife. But she said, your wife, and you were in the circus, what were you doing? I was taming the lions. And what was your wife doing? She was on the trapeze, he said. No, that man he was like that, so whether he got a wife small enough to go up on the trapeze. And then he ended up by saying he was a line tamer. And what happened to your wife? Oh, the line's there, he said. So there was no funeral, nothing. Ned Kylie didn't get that one anyhow. She gave him the docket to go out, because whether he was imagining it or whether he was having the hand out of her. Yeah. But the line says his wife. Yeah.
Just to put Michael in the leather factory, because Michael gave me my job because he was the personnel manager at the time, and it was he that interviewed me for the job.
But just before we get to the leather factory, just finish off that, Michael. Just one question about the county home would be, I suppose, famous in relation to the famine times.
Oh, exactly.
And like, was there any records or any talk about that whole famine time when you were there as a child?
There was, yes. Actually, the people that died there were buried down in the little graveyard in an unmarked grave, and the coffins were made by John Barry, who lived in the old road, and the coffins were just plain boards now. There was no such thing as mountings or anything else, and he would make them, and I'd get the job of going in, telling them to come out and make some more. He'd make some for children and some for adults, and just plain boards. And when they died then, they was brought straight to the dead house, and from the priest then would come, and they were put up in the handcart and brought down, and there was a place there which was known as the Dead Walk. They'd come from the dead house over to this walkway down along, and two other inmates would have the grave dug, and the priest would say the prayers, and he'd go away, and I would bring down, or my brother Dick would bring down the holy water, and we would serve mass there. And
that was during your time?
Oh yes.
That was during your time?
Yes. Okay. Now, on that wall, you could see it. It's on the way over. There was a well on the outside of it, Father Toomey's well. And opposite that, there's a steel door. And at the time of the famine, when people died, they were taken through that door and brought up where the Shanachie is now, and the graveyard is there with a cross. And actually I attended mass there. Our present canon said mass there in memory of all those whereby they're unmarked, and it's called Relic Unclay, on the hill. And actually now I had forgotten to mention the door, because we made a film, and it was afterwards I thought of it. It was Martin Shanahan. Martin was a guard that reminded me that through there the bodies used to be taken and brought away. It would be a horse and cart, and that if somebody was on their last legs, they would be taken also because they'd be dead in maybe half an hour more. This is the story now. But it's true that the Rallygun clay is above at the back of the Shanachie, and you just walk through there.
They would have been stacked. They would have been stacked, all the bodies thrown into these carts, taken away, you know.
Oh yeah, it was like you had in Hitler's time.
It's very sad
Exactly,
history.
yeah.
And come here, Michael, then, you were, what was your first job when you were growing up? Can you remember what your first job was?
Well, I was, you know, you'd get, when you're at school holidays, you'd get messenger by here, and I was doing messenger over in the council offices, and I did messenger in the creamery here.
Or was that cycling? Were you cycling? Or were you running around?
Oh, we have a bicycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was your first real job then, as such?
My real job was, I after doing the leaving cert, I got employment here. The man that was manager was Paddy Jerome, and he gave me a job, and which paid £3 10 shillings a week. And I gave the £3 to my mother, and I had the 10 shillings for the pictures, a hop above the town hall, and cigarettes. Now, I didn't ever get tangled in the cigarettes because I just wasn't a cigarette man, so I didn't keep on that at all.
Okay, you just tried it for a while.
I just tried it, yeah, because everybody would try it. You'd be told to.
And what year did you start in the leather factory?
About 1958, I think.
Okay.
Because we all went to the All Ireland in 48. Waterford won the All Ireland in 48, both minor and senior. So everybody, town was empty, everybody went to Croke Park.
You're talking about 58 now? Or 48? Which is it?
In
58.
1948 they won the All Ireland.
Oh, they won the All Ireland.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
So I started here
okay,
in the training floor, where the skins were hung up on boards and the steam put on in at night to heat them and dry them. That was the training floor. And all the jobs then along right down to the finish warehouse.
so you worked at all different parts of the factory?
I did, yes.
And then eventually you got up the ladder into the office?
Yeah, from the finish
Well, he had to
warehouse
work his way up.
Yeah.
into the office, and after that then there was the board of directors, they introduced work study payment by results and that. So I was put with there were associated industrial consultants, and I trained with those two. One was Richard Toms, who was very approachable and a lovely man, and by his name you'll know the other man was kind of very, you know, his name was Arthur Chapman Hobie. So he was like a doctor, but he was on the ball and he checked my work as well as everything else. And finally I qualified, and then I became. I might be sounding out that I'm boasting. You asked me what I did, and I just became personnel and work study.
And that's where you come in, because this man you said interviewed you, was it?
Yeah, I don't think you ever timed it, did you?
Maybe, you see, when the jobs were timed, then I'd go to Portlaw if they had stuff to be done. So I worked in Portlaw, Carrick-on-Shore. There was 4 sections, and in Gorey. So.
And was it all the same company?
Oh, it was Irish Leathers.
It was
Yes.
Irish Leathers.
It started here with Dickens Leather, and then it went eventually to the Irish Leathers Group, and they made fantastic leather, which was sent all over the world. And but for the fact that it would still be there, but for the fact that Well, it mightn't with the effluent and all that, but it was the underdeveloped countries that started making leather. And in India, actually, the drums are washed out onto the street. And that's true, like.
And you were saying to what?
Just talking about Michael at the time, every item of, say, from the raw hide that came in, it would have been stamped with a number. And that number remained on that piece of leather until it went to Italy. And I'll tell you a story. Michael took some timesheets that were dropped in the office one day, and this certain gentleman had all his time in and his lot number. They were called lot numbers back then. And Michael had to check all these. So he went up to him and he said to him, can I have a word with you? Of course, son, you can have a word with me. Why not? This lot number here now, Michael said to him. Oh, yes, son, yes. I done that yesterday. Did you? Michael said to him. He said, what would you say if I told you there was a gentleman out in Italy actually wearing the shoes from this leather of the lot number that you've given me now? Do you remember that? No?
Yeah, I do, Will. Yeah.
So he got caught out, obviously.
Sure he did, but Michael was all right. Everyone knew that.
And you mentioned, I mean, obviously it was very dirty work and hard work, and there was a lot of chemicals involved. And was it dangerous? Like, did people have accidents and stuff like that?
There was 2 or 3 serious accidents, yeah. But on the whole, really, if you look at the industry throughout the years, there wasn't just those 2 where there was arms lost.
One man lost his arm.
One man lost his fingers.
Another fingers and that.
But otherwise, there was no serious accidents there.
And the stuff, all the chemicals and all that, they were just washed out into the sea.
Washed out into the tide. And if you were allergic to chrome, then you got what's known as chrome itch, and your whole face would be dotted with this thing. You go on your back and all the rest, and others could wash their face and nothing would happen. There's a few men there now, and you'd know they were suffering from this chrome itch.
And how would you know? Just because they're very red, is it?
The skin would flake and become red. Even today, I know of gentlemen that work there that have chrome itch today. Yeah, absolutely. The chrome is dangerous.
And you were saying too that even it was very hard to wash off afterwards when you went home in the evening.
Well, no, that would have been the dust from the brushed leather.
Yeah.
To go into the pores of your skin. But in our time, when I came here in the 70s, when I came from England, work wasn't too hard at all then. But when they started work here, it was very hard then. The work was very hard then, and men worked hard. A few people have accused me of romanticising the leather factory in the articles I wrote. But I also said like the work was very hard there, and people worked very hard back in the 1930s when they came in here.
And did the process change much over the years? Or was it the same process?
Not really, no, not really. It had to be de-lined, chrome used, and then it went over here to the dye department, and you were using the drums there to dye. You had all colours, beautiful colours, and you had there was little, that was comparatively easy by comparison with using the big hide over. So.
And I mean, what was did people go in there with a view to like working for life there? Was that kind of like you got a job?
It was actually, yeah. It was actually, yeah.
If you're very lucky.
There was men worked here for 40 years and they went out with literally pounds with literally nothing. You know.
What, when it closed?
Men that had reached retirement age, say in the 80s, they went out with nothing, maybe £200 or £300.
That's right. Yeah.
After giving 40 years to the industry.
And you did say that it was unionised.
It was unionised. In 1944 there was a very big strike here, and they tried to break the strike by bringing priests and everything else. And the strike went out, I think, on the 9th of October in 1944. They went out, and that was coming up to Christmas. And the company then thought they would break them. Coming into Christmas, they would have had no money. Because they worked for a pittance really back then, you know. But they brought in the parish priest hoping that he would take them back to work coming up to Christmas. But no, they stuck it out until April. And I think they won their case at the time. Or until February. The following February they went back to work.
Well, that was 3 months. Then,
Yeah, the next strike after that I think was in 51, was it, Mike? Or 57.
And then you got a gold watch if you were 25 years here. And of course, like every other job, you had characters there. So Eddie knows this well. There was one man there, Johnny Maguire, a hell of a great man now, worker, but he had a great sense of humour. So his time came to get the gold watch. And he used to do an awful lot of cycling. So you got a gold watch and your name and that on the back of it, and the year. It was 25 years put in, and there'd be a due in the hotel and all the rest of it. So Tom Booth was the works manager at the time, and Johnny went up to him and he said, Mr. Booth, he said, would be any hope, he said, instead of the gold watch, you'd give me a bicycle, because he used cycling an awful lot. And the answer he made him, well now Johnny, he said, if I give you a bicycle, I'll have to give Tommy Aiden a washing machine. So that's how the crack, if you like, went on.
I come here, in the factory itself, when fellas were working, was there much crack? I mean, was there good crack in the place, or was it like, were people working in teams? Were they working in groups?
They were in groups and in teams.
Okay.
In groups and in teams, depending on where you worked and what machine you were on. But it was, apart from everything else, apart from the dirt and the hissing and the leaking pipes and the noise of the drums, people had a great laugh here, had a great crack. In our time, in the 70s. But as I said earlier, back in the 1930s and the 40s, you know, they had to break the ice in the pits, you know, and no gloves or anything, dragging knotted hides out of freezing water. No, they had it tough. There's no good saying they didn't, like they did.
And was there pubs associated with the leather factory? I mean, did
Well,
all
there
the
would
fellas
be,
go to a
yeah.
certain pub, or?
Yeah.
There was a few fellas who'd be gone up to the pub there during working hours too. I mean,
My
that
brother
was,
worked here as well, Dick, and he had a great sense of humour. And there was the works manager here at the moment was Mr. Jones, and he was a Welshman. So Dick went off to the Flakeole, and he didn't come in on Monday, and he was the storekeeper, you see. And you had a machine up there, the paste dryer, where the guns would spray the paste onto the frames, and then the skins were caught, slapped up on it, and slickered out. That was the paste dryer, that was the job. And they'd push and hides, spread them out on it. The sheet of glass would be then go through the machine. So Dick went anyhow, and he didn't come in until Monday, and he was storekeeper. But he'd always give the keys to Neil Spurn. He was the foreman fitter. So if they wanted out with stores, they'd get it. But they came in on Tuesday anyhow, and Mr. Jones said, I want to see you in my office. So he went in anyhow. And of course the lads don't want to know what did he say, etc., etc. Dick came out anyway. He asked Dick, what is this flaticule? That's exactly what he called it. Dick said it's all music and crack, you see. And that was too funny for him now, so he got serious. He said, if you do it again, he said, I'll make it sticky for you, you see. So Dick was unmarried and all the rest of it, and he loved music and crack. So he got out anyway, and the lads, well, what do you say? I think he's putting me on the paste dryer, he said. Dick, he's putting me on the, what? On the paste dryer? And what about storekeeping? No, that's, he said, if you do it again, he said, I'll make it sticky for you. So he must go put me on the paste dryer. That was the type of crack that was there. You see.
And come here, was there shift work there, or was it just all 9 to 5, or what was it at the time? What was the
No,
hours?
there was 3 shifts there.
3 shifts?
2 shifts.
Two
8
shifts,
to 4,
yeah.
4 to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a busy place then.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it, yeah.
And did the shifts change like if you were on the early shift one week, would you be on the late shift next week?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So it was hard to get used to that then, was it?
The thing about shift work, and I've always said it is, if you're going into work at 4 or at 12, you're tied to the job because you can't go anywhere. You know, you're just waiting to go to work at 4 o'clock.
And I heard someone saying that for the children's parties, the leather factory was great.
What was, yeah.
That's
famous
right,
for
yes.
that, yeah.
Who was involved in that, or how did that happen? Or was there a committee or something for
There
the?
was a committee set up for it, yeah, and they would have it every year. They'd have it I don't know how many years it went on for. It wasn't there in my time. It would have been there in your time, though, wouldn't
Yes,
it?
it was, yes.
Okay.
And they were the finest people to work with now. You had, when I came in, John O'Brien, he was general manager. Raymond Anthony was the financial controller. And Tom Bruce was the works manager. He came from Dublin. All great people to work with. And, you know, there was magnificent stuff made.
And was there families associated with the factory? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, it was started
Absolutely,
by Dr. Casey and Reginald Dickens and a few others. They started the factory.
okay.
And there was also the glue factory where the hides, the strings, because there was not a fat in it, they go out to the glue factory and they were manufacturing glue out there,
Where was that?
out of that. That was outside where Waterford Joinery is now.
Okay.
That was the glue factory.
It's about 2 miles outside the town.
Okay. And just to go back to like workers' families, what families would you say associate with the factory?
A lot of families back then would have been working here. 2 and 3 generations
Yeah,
of them.
could you name some of the families that you remember?
Oh, you have
Well,
Jim Keefe, his brother worked there. And like, we'll just take Ring now. You'd have to
Mars.
Armadillo, the Mars, and the Keefes. They'll have to cycle into the factory, cycle on the, start off at 7 in the morning, hail, rain or snow, and cycle in here. And then they'd change their
10 mile
clothes.
journey.
Yeah, 10
mile
miles.
journey.
And they'd have their lunch on a bag, in a little bag on the handlebars, and they'd come in, take off the clothes, hang them up on the pipes, which would be hot, and they'd be dry for putting them back on, going home. And they'd bring in tea, there was bottles of tea, and they'd be left up near the pipes to keep them warm and that. But it was a great place to work now.
When this place opened in 1935, there was 24,000 shares went up for sale at 9 in the morning. They were gone an hour after. But of course, a lot of them were bought in block, and as Michael said, the Casey family and different families involved with the industry bought them. But that's 24,000 shares.
But it wasn't local owned, was it? It was national.
Well, Reginald Dickens came from Northampton.
Okay, so it was English.
English, yeah.
Okay.
And there was someone else, there was a couple of English, wasn't there, involved in it.
And you said
But
it
they
was-
were the Irish people, Dr. Casey
Okay.
and the parish priest at the time had a lot to do with bringing the leather factory here
That's
as well.
right, yeah.
I forget his name.
Okay. Okay, so that's here we are now in the what was originally part of the old leather factory. Can you tell us what was here at that time?
The earliest record of what was here was you had famine victims here during the famine. They put beds in here on both floors, here and upstairs. They were kept here.
So this was like nearly like the workhouse kind of thing, that kind of stuff.
No, because the workhouse was overpowered.
Okay.
and they had to find other places to put him. And this was one of the places where they brought him.
Oh my God.
That's why the ghost is there. George didn't speak about that.
Tell us about the ghost.
And it's lovely to see the beams, Canadian pine, isn't it?
Yeah.
That are still here, and George has retained most of them here into the world. Well, I suppose the building would fall down if they took them out.
Now, what was the ghost story?
The ghost story was John Joe Fraher, who was a night watchman, very famous personality.
Yeah.
And he was crossing the air one night, and he noticed some sort of light coming from, actually it was the floor above this. And John Joe feared no man, he wasn't afraid of anybody. So he crushed out his cigarette, and he had a big lamp he used to carry with him. And he climbed the stairs. They were old wooden narrow stairs then. You know, they were there since the time began. And when he got to the top of the stairs, he was shining the lamp up, and there was a man standing at the top of the stairs. And John Joe just dropped the lamp and ran. But he was dressed in probably early 18th century clothing. That's true.
Okay.
Isn't it?
That's true.
Thanks, Michael.
And any speculation about who he was?
No, absolutely not, no.
No one knows.
Perhaps a famine victim.
Okay. We'll never know.
We'll never know, no.
Okay. We'll have to ask George later on as you see them since.
Yeah.
And what was in the factory here at that stage? When it was the leather works, when it was the leather factory, what would be in this area?
Well, spraying was the earliest thing, wasn't it, Michael?
Yeah. You had Persian goat coming in, imported, and they were packed so tight that the fat in the skins, they had to be, before they go to the drums, they all had to be separated. So there was a great character here, Tommy Duggan. Noel Hackett was the church, and Tommy Duggan, Tony Mansfield and myself, we got a half day which was terrific. You had a half day's overtime. So Tommy, anyway, he was a musician as well. So he took out this bundle of Persian goats, and they were stuck together. And he put his leg up in the bale, and he said to Noel, "Did you ever hear this one?" he said, and he started off playing the box, you know, but through the skins. He playing away mad. And the next thing, who appeared at the door? Only Paddy Durand, the works manager. So he said, stop it. That's where he was high pitched. Stop it. So Tommy got such a fright. He caught the skins and he started to bang them off the wall. They were falling asunder. They were being, scratched, etc., etc. So he told Noel, "I'll see you in my office on Monday morning." So Noel then said to Tommy, "You're after ruining my weekend," he said. I have to wait to see what he's going to say to me Monday morning. And Tommy said, "You're a nice man. He'll say nothing to you. It's me he'll get on to." So that was the story of the skins up on top of barrels.
They looked like an accordion when they were packed tight together. Yeah, they just looked like.
And you said you used to spray. They sprayed them up here, was it?
The spray they'd laid the skin out and had a gun attached to a big barrel, and they'd spray them, all the different colours. And
to dye them?
They dyed them, yeah, that was a dye. But they went on to be pressed in that then. Yeah. But a lot of the men that worked there used to spit in this dye out all day, all the different colours. And at one stage...
There'd be no extractor fans in those days?
No, there'd be no extractor fan. But there was one, I think, and the boys used to go and have a smoke alongside
That's right, yeah.
But anyway, there was a massive big fire here when the system went up on and people started scattering because the timber and everything was dry, the bow floor and all was dry. And they ran down the stairs with one brave warrior, Paddy Noonan was his name. He put the fire out.
On his own, man?
Oh yeah, on his own, yeah. He was on his own, he put the fire out. Very
God. Jeez, I hope to give him a bonus.
I don't know. I know that a manager that was here at the time when I interviewed him told me that one of the directors said they should have left to go up. And if they did, I mean, George wouldn't be here today, would he?
No, he wouldn't.
And you wouldn't have this brilliant restaurant.
It's interesting. And like in the old photographs there, you can see like a lot of the old. What else would have been around this building and down below and all the rest of it? So if we can see and reference them in the photographs. This where we are now is probably the store where Michael's brother Dick was the storeman.
Storekeeper.
But it's all referred to as Barry stores, and upstairs then were the drying rooms.
That's right.
Where leather was dried.
Okay.
They bring in the weather when it was wet and it's hung up to dry.
And would these places be cold in the winter, like, or would they be?
No, they were always warm.
They were, yeah.
Why
yeah.
was it? Because they were boiling stuff down below, or what was it?
No, you had fan heaters running all the time.
Okay.
Well, they ran overnight.
To dry the skins.
Yeah.
Okay.
The men came in, they hung the skins to dry, they toggled them. Was there a toggling system here?
Toggling and
I know it was in the straining floor.
Yeah.
And they toggled the leather, stretch it and toggled it onto these frames. And they turned the heat on then. And that was left going all night. And in the morning they turn it off, take off all the skins and put more on. And there were times they had so much time to do it. And if they didn't do it in the right time, Michael would be after them.
That's true.
And okay, and then when how did it all finish? How did the leather factory finish? What happened?
I think initially it was South American imports.
That's right.
That was the very beginning of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then after that I was gone. Maybe you could take up
Well,
that.
you had sales people going out to the different places, producing the leather beautiful, and they could show stuff half the price with the imports, and sales then dropped. There was at one stage the management said there was a bottomless pit of orders, but bit by bit, same as everything else, you had it wiped out. So it ended up that there was layoffs, last in, first out, and it continued and continued until finally it closed. So,
And then obviously there was a big hole in the town when all those people were left go and all that kind of stuff.
well, of course, you had since then you had the Waterford glass, which took a whole lot of people.
So a lot of lads moved from here to the glass factory.
Yeah, and even before it closed, they were gone because the wages were way ahead of what you could earn here.
It was
The thing about the leather factory too is there was a spin-off industry from it, in that you had 3 or 4 restaurants around the town where all the workmen went and had their lunches. You know, you had Ducey's, James Ducey's, and you had Meads, you had McGrath's on Mary Street, and you had Stacks on the main street, and they all facilitated the workers. They got special deals, you know, because they were dining there every day.
And then the glass factory, when that started, was that seen as a better job than better wages?
Sure it was. Yeah, it was seen as a better job at better wages.
Not lighter.
Yeah.
Cleaner, I suppose.
You know.
In some ways.
Well, there was red lead and stuff out there too, but, actually no one ever died from the leather factory either.
No.
They might have been a bit pale looking, but they never died, no.
Okay, well, thanks very much, lads, for sharing that with us, because it's a great pleasure for us to get an insight into something which was a really big part of the town.
It certainly was, yes.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of families raised work from people that worked here in the leather factory. Yeah.
You had people who would otherwise have had to go to England to rear their families. Yeah.
I'll tell you a great story. George was speaking about the lift over there. It was called, what was it called?
The winch.
The winch. The winch. There was a gentleman fell from the top floor down into that. And it wasn't Michael now that told me this story. But there was a big emergency because, it was a nice fall. But they contacted Michael and he ran from the office and they took a door down and they put him on the door. And at the time there used to be a van here for delivering.
That's right.
And they caught him. Can we mention his name?
We can't. Go.
He was Henry.
Michael A.
Michael A. Henry. So they carried him on this door out to the van, and it was an emergency to try to get him in and he wouldn't fit in. And they couldn't figure out what to do. But Michael then thought of this idea. Tom Booth was the assistant manager here, and he lived in one of the houses here facing the lookout. But it also happened to be at one time an undertaker's house. And there was a hearse in around the back.
Yeah.
And Michael said, we'll go and get the hearse. So they went off, they got it. Did you drive the hearse or who drove it?
No.
They brought the hearse
John
out.
Phelan drove it.
Who?
John Phelan, he drove
John Phelan, he drove it. Yeah, John Phelan's hearse. And they put him into the back of the hearse and they drove him to the hospital.
That's right. In the heart.
And he survived.
Was there any breakages around there?
Oh, we don't know anything about that.
Yeah, yeah,
But he got up out of the house.
yeah. He arrived at the hospital in the heart. Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks a million, lads.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Yeah.
We'll pack up there. Michael, what I'll do is I'll go and get